Right, so session 7 in our discussion for the July 2024 examination, and it means that we have 5 more weeks to go for the exam. Now, by now, it means technically you have covered around 60-70% ish of the syllabus. Give and take, you should be about 50% of the syllabus, which means that you understand the principles of these things. You have exposed yourself to a number of questions in respect of these topics, and when it comes to about 50 or 60% of the syllabus. And then also you have actually started working on your timing, working on your recollection, working on your memory, working on your attention and focus level in the exam hall. Because one of the things that will play a key role in the exam hall is your ability to be able to remember the things that you have studied. Now, some of you are going to be in a spot where you have read the question, you've seen this thing, it's like you've heard it before from your lecturer, or you've heard it before, you've read it before, but it looks like it's a bit fuzzy and it's not coming. And one thing you must understand is that when you experience that, when you are faced with that, you need to learn to calm your nerves, you need to learn to control yourself, you need to learn to just focus on yourself and just take a deep breath, relax, don't sweat about it, don't think too much about it, just relax. And the more relaxed you are, the more you can recollect the principles. But you see, you don't wait to the exam hall before you start doing this, you start practicing this. So what you need to do is to start working like that throughout the rest of the sessions that we have for the examination. What it means is that once you understand the principles in relation to the topics that are in the subjects that you're supposed to know, then you should be able to apply those principles to questions that you're going to be solving, not just the ICAG past questions, but questions in the ICAG question kits, as well as questions from other sources. One of the most important things is that whilst you're practicing the questions, you're going to force yourself to challenge yourself to practice the questions and the time. What does that mean? A 1-mark question requires 1.8 minutes. And so you just have to set a stop clock down and work within the time. So in your study time, whilst you are practicing questions on your own, you need to be able to challenge yourself. Now, the more you expose yourself to questions and have those moments where you've seen the question, it's like you know it, but the principle is not coming, then you start practicing the attitude, you start practicing the technique of controlling your breath, you start practicing the techniques of learning to calm yourself down so that your brain can be at ease, so you can recollect what you have to recollect, then you solve the questions. Now, another thing also is that when you are solving the questions, especially when you begin, you're going to get overwhelmed. Because some of you are going to start solving questions that you don't qualify to solve. Now, I say this humbly in the sense that, sometimes people think passing the examination is about solving questions. Forgetting that before you can start solving questions, you need to understand the principles. So let's say you are doing financial reporting and you are sitting for the examination. One of the key areas that will be in financial reporting is the preparation of single entity financial statements. And that is the statement of profit or loss, statement of changes in equity, statement of financial position, or the cash flow statement. Now, what many people do is to start solving questions, but what you have to understand is that each of the footnotes in these financial statements that I've mentioned is based on an accounting standard. And so you realize that people will pick the questions, but they've read the notes and they have no clue about what the heck the note is about. Why? Because you are not solid on the accounting standards. And so before you start attempting the final account questions, you need to be solid based on the accounting standards, because if you're not strong on the accounting standards, then you become overwhelmed. Every single entity question you pick, there is a note there, there are notes there that you might not have an idea about because of the stage that you are at in your study cycle, possibly because you have not covered enough accounting standards to give you the capacity to be able to solve the questions. And so Yes, you got to solve questions, but you need to understand the principles. Let's say you're writing public sector accounting and finance. Yes, one of the key questions in the public sector accounting and finance, which is going to be in question 2, is the preparation of the financial statement. It's a done deal waiting for you in the exam hall. And depending on how excited the examiner is, you could be asked to prepare the statement of financial performance and statement of financial position, or the cash flow statement. Now, you can be asked to prepare any of these statements from a consolidated fund perspective, that is on the central government, or from a covered entity perspective, that is for a ministry, department, an agency, a metropolitan, municipal, or a district assembly. Now, in as much as it is good for you to practice questions in respect of the final questions, you need to understand that there are some fundamental principles that you must have before you come to practicing final account questions. Because one key topic that is going to be crucial there is the revenue management and expenditure control. So if you don't understand revenue management and expenditure control, how are you going to understand classification of the revenue items for the central government, for the local government, for other covered entities? How would you understand classification of expenditure items? So revenue management and expenditure control, you have to be strong on that. Then another key thing has to be the issue about IPSAs, because there are a lot of IPSAs that you have to apply when it comes to the preparation of the final accounts in the public sector. We can talk about IPSAs 12, inventories, IPSAs 9, revenue from non-exchange transaction, revenue from exchange transaction, IPSAs 23, revenue from non-exchange transaction, IPSAs 17, property, plant and equipment, IPSAs 4, accounting policies, changes in accounting estimates and errors. Now, these are just status. And so before you start exposing yourself to final accounts questions in public sector, yes, it's a done deal area waiting for you in the exam hall. You have to have spent the time understanding the principles under revenue management and expenditure control and some of these IPSAs. If not, you will pick the question, you cannot attempt it, there is a note you wouldn't understand, you may even see the solution, but you cannot even comprehend it much better, and that may discourage you from proceeding or going ahead with your studies, thereby saying, oh, this thing, crowd, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And that may discourage you to put a book aside until later dates when it is a week to the exam, 2 days to the exam, then you start being serious, which means you're going to cause yourself a lot of emotional damages, which will result into ultimately failing the examination 98% of the time. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that you really have to spend time to understand the principles, the concepts that underline whatever subjects that you are writing. It's important. That's the first thing. Once you understand the principles and concepts, boom, you can expose yourself to questions. But you got to be careful. I'm not talking about the ICAG past questions, because you see, nothing in the ICAG past question 99.9% of the time you're going to see again in the exam hall. So if you are referring to the past questions, you are referring to the past questions to learn about the structure of the questions, the verbs that the examiner is using, and most importantly, to read the chief examiner's report, because that gives you indication on some of the things that students are doing wrong and the various recommendations that the chief examiner makes, which will then enable you to then prepare for the examination. So you got to solve questions, but I'm not concerned about the ICAG past questions. So you expose yourself to questions outside the ICAG past question. But this is the trick. Once you're exposing yourself to those questions, the third thing has to be solving these under time. Because one of the crucial things that it challenges that most of you are going to be having in the exam hall is time, right? And you're not going to be able to solve all the 5 questions 99.9% of the time. So the question is, how do you put yourself in the mental state that you will be able to go into the exam hall, write the exam with confidence and pass the examination, but most importantly, do all that within time? The only way you can do that is to practice questions under time prior to the examination. So you need to be practicing questions under time. And this is the most important aspect of the whole thing, because you see, Some of you will fail the exam or might have failed the exam in the past, not because you don't know, but it's because you didn't manage your time well, you didn't allocate your time well. Because you see, sometimes people are like, oh, Nhyira, I'm a slow reader, I'm a slow writer, I'm a slow learner. You know, let me tell you this. Nobody cares about that. You see, nobody cares about that. Whether you're a slow learner, you're a slow reader, you're a slow writer, you're a slow walker, you're a slow whatever the heck, nobody cares. Absolutely nobody cares. Now, you see, that is not what you want to hear. Because you want to hear me pat you on the back and say, oh, feel, kakra, you know, small, everything is going to be well. No! In the exam hall, you got 3 hours, and there is no extra time given to people who are slow readers, who are slow writers, who are slow whatever the heck. And so you need to challenge yourself to be able to recollect things as soon as possible. The reason you will spend more time on questions than require is because of the time between reading the question and reaching a conclusion of what the answer should be. If you can shrink that time, you will be able to pass the exam with ease. So you read a question, you've seen the requirements of the questions, but you don't remember which principle you're supposed to apply. Or maybe you remember the principle, but you don't know how to apply the principle. So it's going to take time. So you're going to spend like 5 minutes, 6 minutes before you are able to understand what you're supposed to do. Now, that is a waste of time. Imagine you get to a point where you read a question and the principle drops. You read a question, then the principle drops. You're able to shrink the time between reading and knowing what principle to apply and starting to write. How do you get to that level? It is by practicing consistently under time. So if you can solve questions under time consistently, I can guarantee you, you will be in the position to write the exam and most importantly, pass the exam. So we have some few weeks to go. There's a lot that you can do. If you want to pass the exam, my recommendation is this: understand the principles. Don't take it for granted. Understand the principles and pay attention. Be very conscious about this. Make sure you understand the principles. Once you understand the principles, boom, let's expose ourselves to questions. Not just the past questions, questions outside the past questions. But whilst you are doing that, make sure you do it under time. Put yourself under the pressure. Challenge yourself to write faster. Challenge yourself to think faster. Challenge yourself to recollect faster. And I've taught you a lot of techniques on how to study, how to be active, how to challenge your brain from my brain coach, Jim Quick. And you can check the channel, the How To playlist on the channel to watch some of these videos on the various techniques on how to study, how to take notes, and how to optimize your study life so you can go to the exam hall, write the exam with confidence, and most importantly, pass the examination. Listen, I don't believe you should write this exam 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. No. I've had people approach me, and I think last 2 semesters, there was a lady who approached me, was like, I've written financial reporting for about 8 times. And I'm like, why the heck do you keep going? And she's like, yeah, I really want to do this, but for some reason, this subject is my problem. Then I'm like, okay, let's deal with the issue, right? So the same issue, understanding the principles. So although she had written the paper over and over again, her principles were weak. And so understanding the principles, very important. Then expose yourself to questions, very important. Then solve those questions under time, having the right mindset, the right attitude, being dedicated, disciplined, and willing to go the extra mile. Guess what? She went to the exam hall, wrote the exam, and she passed the examination. So it's all there. What you're supposed to do to pass, it's there. If you can apply yourself and come out of your limitations, come out of your brain, and the little stories that you tell yourself, you can write the exam and pass the examination. And most importantly, become a chartered accountant as soon as possible. Again, I don't think it should take 10 years to become a chartered accountant. I'm not excited about such stories, with all due respect. Yeah, somebody will stand out, yeah, I started this journey 10 years ago, and by, through word hardship and whatever the heck, now I am a chartered accountant. I'm not excited about that story. You took 10 years to do something that could be done in a year. You took 10 years to do something that could be done in 2 years. Do you know the disadvantages of that? Do you know how much delay you've cost life? So I don't think you should also take 10 years to do anything. You could do it in a year. You could do it in 2 years maximum. If you have the right mindset, you have the right attitude, and you are under the right mentorship, I can guarantee you, you can go to the exam hall, write the exam, and pass the examination. Listen, it's possible, but you are in your head. If you can come out of your head, have the right mindset, have the right attitude, follow this discussion that I've done with you, understand the principle, expose yourself to questions, and solve these questions under time. Challenge yourself to remember things as fast as possible. Don't tell yourself you're a slow person. Challenge yourself to recollect what you have studied. I can guarantee you, you will be able to pass the examination, and do this as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there are any questions that you have for me. I would want to hear from you. Now, if there are any other things, this video here and this video here will be a helpful material to help you on this journey, so you can prepare well for the examination, and most importantly, pass the exam. My name is Nhyira Premium, and I'll see you in the next one.